conference play just around the corner for Northwestern men's soccer and women's soccer. We cannot wait. This fall is really rolling along. Ryan, alongside David, one more time. We are flying. UNW Athletics conversation. David, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. And Ryan, I would say we're officially kind of out of the start of the fall. I mean, these fall seasons have officially started. We're off and running. And let's introduce our guest, who I'm super excited to have with us, Coach Greg Wheaton, the head coach for the University of Northwestern men's soccer team. Coach, thanks for being here with us today.
You bet. My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. We love getting you guys some media attention. And does it feel good putting the headset on and being the mic? It feels natural, good for you?
Definitely.
There we go.
Born for this.
You look nice and comfortable. You don't look nervous or frazzled or anything like that. So season's off and running. We were just talking before we got started here, Coach, your 23rd season leading the University of Northwestern men's soccer team. I'm going to be honest with you. That's almost as long as I've been alive. What's it like to do the same thing for 23 straight years?
You know, it's exciting. Obviously, I'm blessed to do what I love. When we talk about compete with purpose at Northwestern, my purpose is soccer. That's what God created me for. So it's fun. Every year has a different challenge, has a different group that you get to work with and impact their lives. So, every year is different, but every year is exciting. And there's ups and downs in every year. But when you do what you love and you know what your purpose is, you just enjoy it. So.
We're going to talk a lot of soccer with you over the course of this conversation. But before we start with that, I really want to learn the story of how you came to Northwestern, because you have a story unlike any of the other coaches, how you got here. You're from a different part of the world than any of the other coaches are here. So can you just tell us how you kind of got to Northwestern and started coaching the team here?
Yep. So originally I had a kid that I grew up with in Brazil that went to Northwestern. So when I was going to school at Liberty, he invited me up here for the summers, and so I spent the summers up here in Minnesota working. And then after I was done with college, I went off to play professionally, and he ended up going to school here at Northwestern. And I was playing in Bolivia, and things didn't work out for me in Bolivia, so I came back, and he's like, hey, the assistant coach for men's soccer is open up here. I'd like you to come up here. And I'm also well connected with the professional team. So his name was Jeremy Eby, and he went to school at Northwestern and played for Northwestern. So he's the one that kind of got me connected with Northwestern and was assistant coach for a couple of years. And then, Ripley Smith was the coach back then, and he kind of retired, and that opportunity came up for me to take the job. And I was pretty young, but pretty excited to have that opportunity. And that's kind of how I ended up here in Minnesota. I joke and saying that I came here because I like the cold weather. That's far from the truth. God has a sense of humor.
Well, born and raised in Brazil, did it ever cross your mind as you were growing up playing soccer in Brazil that you were going to be living and kind of make your home in Minnesota?
No, just no chance. No
For sure.
chance.
And we talked about 23 years. I just asked this bluntly. I mean, why have you stayed? What about Northwestern makes it where you've wanted to be here and lead this soccer team for 23 years?
Yep. I think what Northwestern's about, I've had other opportunities and other times in my life. I've kind of looked at different avenues, different ways I could go. But, soccer was the number one thing in my life for many years. And I really came to grips that, God needed to be number one and not soccer. Ever since then, I've kind of let God kind of lead the way of where I should go, where I should stay, and what my purpose is. And so there's times where I've said, God, do you want me still here? And he's been pretty clear about this is where you should be and where you should stay. I don't know if that will be forever. But, I think even after COVID, I just became even more passionate about being able to use the gift of soccer to impact people's lives and the blessing that I'm able to do that. So.
When you're at one spot, Coach, for over 20 years, you've clearly seen a lot. And I know so many things have probably happened over that much time. But could you talk about the progression of the program from when you step in all those years ago up until now? What have you seen grow, change, and evolve for Northwestern men's soccer?
Yeah, when I first took over the soccer program, soccer was still growing. It is still growing, obviously, but it was still kind of a sport that, many of the players at Northwestern hadn't played, didn't have a lot of experience. So it was really just kind of getting them to kind of be bonding together and believe in themselves. And we played a pretty simple style of soccer, right? And as the game has kind of evolved, the type of player that we have, there was a period, I say the period before having the new Reynolds Field and the period after.
Yeah.
I think the period after really kind of changed just the facilities, kind of helped our program grow and really kind of be on the map and say, hey, we can bring in quality players that can make us compete at that next level. So yeah, it's an ebb and flow, and even now we're in a period that we're seeing a lot of teams in our conference bringing a lot of international players. So our conference has gotten a lot stronger, I would say, in the last 3 to 4 years. So even our challenge is how do we bring in that quality type of player that can compete at that level, because the level is definitely growing.
You mentioned Reynolds Field. That was going to be my follow-up with that huge accomplishment to add that in 2014. Could you share more about what that's done for you guys, not just with games, but obviously practices, recruiting? What has that facility done for your program?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Recruiting, obviously, definitely. When you bring a kid and his family up here to see the facilities, I mean, it's phenomenal, right? So that's the first piece. I think they also piece from a practice standpoint. We used to practice on half of a field with the girls, and the field was beat up, and you'd bring a kid in here, and he's like, yeah, great. I like the school, but I don't know about these facilities. So from a facility standpoint, obviously recruiting standpoint, and then just from a practice standpoint, having lights, having turf, being able to be out there, and then just for the players to go out there and train themselves. And then obviously the spring, we'd say we'd have a spring season, but we never had a spring season because the field was never ready. So yeah, it's definitely helped our program significantly, and it's been awesome.
Is turf faster to play on? Is it easier for players to move around? What's the difference between playing on turf and grass?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in the Midwest, turf is definitely faster, especially because a lot of the fields, it's longer grass, it's a lot slower. But there's turf nowadays that's very similar to grass. Our turf's a little older, but still in great shape. Our turf is pretty fast, but if you take some of the newer facilities, it's more like a normal natural grass type of field.
Now that we've had Reynolds Field here for 7-8 years, are you used to having the turf pellets in your shoes now? Did that take some time getting used to?
Listen, it's part of life in the Midwest. Just ask my wife. She's like,
is it all over the house? The
always.
Pellets are everywhere?
I've gotten better. I try to clean it out before I get there. So
okay. Well, I'd love to start asking a bunch of soccer questions if you're down for that.
Definitely.
We know you love soccer. So I just want to talk to you about the start of your season here. You guys have played a very competitive non-conference schedule. You've played 3 games so far. They've all been against really high-quality teams. What is the advantage of playing such a challenging, competitive non-conference schedule as you start to prepare for conference play here?
I think it's critical for players to see what the level's like. We're a very young team this year, and just them getting used to that level, that speed of play, the physicality. So the advantage there is just that they really get to see that, hey, this is a different level. Because I think no matter what we tell kids, they think, oh, I'm a star at my high school. I come in the college game, and I'm going to be great. I think they see that the level is a lot higher and a lot more difficult. So the advantage there is they're ready now, right? They see what it takes. Mm-hmm. So mentally, they don't come into conference play, hopefully as nervous and like, hey, we've done this and we've played teams better than this.
For sure. What are the biggest lessons or coaching points that you're trying to get across to your team after these first 3 games?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is kind of playing as a team. We have a lot of good young individuals, but when it comes to them playing together as a team at this level, just the little things, right, of just, being connected. When we talk about soccer, is not being disconnected, your mids, your forwards, your defenders, just learning how to do that, and then just being able to play quicker, because that's the big adjustment from the college game or from the high school game to the college game. So
you talk about the young guys, Coach. You have plenty of freshmen entering into the program this year, but you also have a lot of returning guys who are still just sophomores, but they're playing in big roles. Could you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you have with so many new guys, but also some of the positives, saying, we got fresh blood. These guys are hungry, and I'm sure they want to learn.
Yeah, I think the advantage is they are new, right? And so it's a good opportunity. We talk about always, improving our culture. What better way to start by improving your culture and kind of set high expectations? As a coach, I'm always trying to get better. I kind of tell my players that's the level I'm going to hold you accountable to. So I think with that fresh blood, you get the fresh opportunity to kind of develop that next culture and the next winning culture, preferably. So. I guess disadvantages is just some leadership and having people step up. But I think my sophomores are up for the challenge. They were a very strong freshman class last year. They've done a phenomenal job kind of leading and kind of setting the examples. But there's conversations we have every day. Hey, people get sick of me yelling at them all the time in practice. We want you to step up. And they're really doing a good job of that. So I think that's one of those pieces that it's a great opportunity.
And I'm sure that extends, obviously, for you for the limited number you have, but you do have some upperclassmen, juniors, seniors, and so on. What do you want to see from them specifically, not just early this year, but throughout the year for those freshmen, those sophomores who maybe haven't been in those big moments that you'll see later on this fall?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just them, having those individual conversations with them, of them not being too nervous, of them, obviously, even the way they practice and the quality that they bring to practice. Yesterday we had an example on upperclassmen kind of calling guys out to take things more seriously, and that's what we want, just that leadership piece. And we're fortunate; we have great kids, and when we ask them to do something, they usually step up and do that. So,
on Saturday, 4:30, conference play starts. The games start to go towards that conference record, and you start that pursuit of a conference championship. You're going up against North Central, the Rams, just down the road, downtown Minneapolis. What's it like getting ready for a conference game? You've had these non-conference games to prepare you. Does the preparation change at all as you get ready for these games, or just what's the mindset from your coaching staff and your players as you get ready for these games?
Yeah, obviously the non-conference we're playing and getting ourselves ready. So the conference piece, really, it's where it matters. Obviously, everybody understands that. I think, when I talk about preparation, I think every game you should prepare the same for, in the aspect that you need to be ready, need to be improving. I think the nice part of the non-conference, we get to see the areas that we need to improve on. So my expectations are higher that we step into these conference games and that we clean up a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the things that we've learned and take that and put that into practice. So,
without giving away the game plan here on the podcast, not that anybody listens to this anyways, but could you just tell us a little bit about North Central and maybe just a couple things that your team's going to need to do to be successful, again, without drawing up the X's and O's for us?
No problem. I mean, I think you take North Central, Crown, Martin Luther, all those schools, when we play each other, those are always big rivalries, and so I think North Central is a hardworking team. They're probably a more direct team than some of the other teams that will play in our conference. So they're very dangerous up top. So just really making sure that we put pressure on the ball early and don't get caught getting a high line to where they can beat us because they have a lot of speed. So it's really just staying connected, making sure that we don't allow them, the strong counters where they're strong at, and making sure we dictate the play and manage the game a little bit, which we have the ability to do, I think. But we're young, so hopefully we can step up and do that. So,
I'd like to circle back, Coach, to something you were mentioning earlier about the talent and the growth that we've seen for the conference. You mentioned more international guys playing in this league, specifically looking at this year. From what you learned last year, what you know is coming back, you know it full well. I mean, we saw games at Reynolds Field last year where you guys are competing against the Superiors, the Bethanies, the Northlands, the top teams in the conference, I should say. And it's right down to the wire, and I don't want to remind you about some of the things that happen in extra time and overtime. But what I'm saying is you guys were right there with top-level teams. The conference as a whole, what do you see it as playing out like here in this 2022 season?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another very difficult year. I think Bethany's brought in over 20 new players. I think Northland as well, and Superior obviously always has a great amount of good players, both American players, international players. So I think it's just going to be as challenging, and I think even Crown's brought in a lot of international players now too. So I think it's going to be even more competitive, and that we're really going to have to be at the top of our game every time we show up. So I think that's the critical piece that we've told people. We have to work extremely hard. We have to be organized in order for us to compete at that level. Yes, we have some good players as well, but we also have to understand who we are. And to me, it's can we be organized, can we be disciplined, and can we play with a lot of drive and passion, because that's going to give us the opportunities to beat some of those top teams.
Quick tangent here, but Ryan just mentioned some of the overtime games last year. You played in a lot of them. No overtime this year in college soccer. What are your thoughts on that rule change?
Thank you, Jesus.
Elaborate on that, or that's kind of all you got?
No. It's when you're playing so many games in a week, soccer is a very demanding sport, and you end up playing sometimes 3 overtimes in a week or 2 overtimes. It's just the wear and tear on the players as well as the emotional piece. And so to me, it's just having that overtime piece, although it can be exciting, I don't think it's in the best interest of the players just because it's just so taxing. So
for sure. So a good rule change, according to you, and I'm sure a lot of other coaches. Again, circling back to something you mentioned earlier, you kind of said every team's different. You've been here 23 years. None of your teams have been exactly the same. Every team has its own identity. I know it's early. We're only 3 games into this 2022 season. What do you think will be the identity of this squad? What have you seen so far? What do you think is really going to make up this team?
Yeah, I think we're a talented group. I think from a technical standpoint, probably more talented than we've ever had. But I think the biggest thing is them just believing in themselves. So really trying to show them that they can play at this level and they can compete at this level. So really kind of what I see is if we can pull it together from just a mentality and a work ethic, that's one of the big things that we're working on is just that intensity at practice. I see it being a fun team, an exciting team that can play with just about anybody. But obviously we're young, so hopefully we can, put these lessons behind us and kind of produce what we want to produce. We're trying to play a style that is, a possession style, although that's hard sometimes. So I'm really picky. I mean, the guys, the nice part, we've added a camera now to where we can record our practices. So I'm sit down after every practice and, send them about 45 minutes of stuff they can watch and learn and grow. So I think they're excited. I think they know they can play, just put it all together, and that's my responsibility. So
for anyone listening to this, Coach, I think they can full well understand why you have passion for this game, why you have passion for this school. But we know that your passion and your investment into the game of soccer goes beyond just Northwestern. Can you share a little bit why you devote so much time into this game? What makes soccer special, and why is it worth investing so much time into for you personally?
Yeah, I've kind of talked about the purpose, right? But I think growing up in Brazil, soccer is more than just a game. It's really a religion. I was blessed to watch some of the best players. I used to watch the national team practice 10 minutes from my house. My dad was good friends with the national team goalkeeper. So I just grew up in an environment where the game is so much about passion and love and drive. So it becomes a core of who you are. So you take that education of the game and where you grew up with, that's that first initial piece as a kid, what you see and what you dream about, right? And then you take that passion and then you combine that with learning kind of what your gifts are and what God creates you for. And you put those things together, and then I think you just realize, hey, this is what you love, this is what you created. And I think more and more as a Christian, we have the opportunity to be light and to be the best we can be. And so to me, it's really like, how do I become better every day? How can I inspire people? How can I use this passion to show people that it is a game, but more importantly in a game, there's a purpose that every one of us has that God has created us for. So I try to use that platform and try to instill that passion amongst other people. And when they ask questions, they can see why and how. I think the best way we're examples to people is by our testimony of what we do day in and day out, not just our words. So,
amen. That's really good.
Coach, my last question for you. Let's say a recruit's listening. Again, probably no one's listening, but let's
don't sell us short. Come on.
Well, this is going to grow. Don't worry.
When we have Coach Wheaton listening on with us, I'm sure we've got all of Brazil, all of the United States listening. When it's just me and Ryan, that's not the case probably. But let's say you have a recruit listening. What is UNW men's soccer about? How do you sell this program? How do you get student athletes to want to be a part of this? Who are you guys as a team, as a program? You've mentioned it a little bit, your guys' purpose, but can you just expand on that one more time, please?
Yeah, I think what I tell kids when they come here, obviously the school is the first piece, but then we talk about Northwestern soccer is the experience, right? The experience of dealing with coaches that have played the game at a high level, that has also coached at a high level, but more importantly, are going to invest in you as a human being. In Brazil growing up, we talk about the development of a person, not just of a player. And as a program, my job and my goal is to develop the whole being. And soccer is a big piece to that. So I think when they come in here, they're not going to just grow and understand what the passion of soccer about is, become a better player, but become a better person, a better Christian. I think that's the key to us is our whole focus, yes, starts with soccer as the initial piece of our connection, but it's going to go a lot further than that. You mentioned some of the upperclassmen that come by and, watch our games and come out and train with us. That to me is what it's all about. Is we're creating those relationships, and we're creating those human beings that are going to become better, are going to come back and say, hey, thank you for that. And so really letting people know that we're going to do more than just the soccer piece. We're going to develop you as a human being and make you better in every part of your life.
That's awesome. Well, your 23rd season of coaching the University of Northwestern men's soccer team. It's been an awesome run for you. I know Ryan and I will both be watching and following along this 2022 season, and we hope it's an awesome ride going forward. Good luck on Saturday as you start the UMAC season. And that's all I got for you, Ryan. If you have anything else or you want to take us out.
Hey, I'm more excited about the program. I hope people listening are more excited about the program, and I'm just going to say it. Next Thursday, the 22nd, under the lights, just across the way, at Reynolds Field, conference opener, hosting the Polars. You have no excuse. Show up, watch both squads. Show up early. watch Coach Pettit's club. I know you'll be watching Coach, and then watch Coach Wheaton's club get after it, and let's have a good start to conference play. So thanks so much for joining us.
Can I put you on the spot real quick?
No,
Can you send us off in Portuguese real quick here for us?
I will, but first, thank you guys for this.
Thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it.
Que todos tenham bom dia, que Deus possa abençoar vocês. Grande abraço.
That was awesome. Just cut it. We got nothing else to say.
Yes, absolutely.